Technology is shifting faster than ever, with mobile at almost full adoption to social media changing our society expectations every day. Voice is one of the new frontiers that was once science fiction just a few short years ago. Today we explore the idea of how voice commands will be the new interface of restaurant and hospitality in the future. Join me as we get a chance to talk with Anmol Oberoi, the CEO of Emitrr. Listen in. All right, so Anmol, welcome to the Barron Report. Thanks for stopping in on the show today.
Thanks a lot, Paul, for having me. I'm extremely excited to be a part of the show and share my learnings with the audience.
Yeah. All right, so first tell us a little about Emitrr and kind of what the company does in the area of voice, because voice obviously is what we're going to be talking about today. Tell me a little bit about the background there.
Right. So like I mentioned in my previous conversations, Emitrr is really a voice-first SaaS platform. And when I say a voice-first SaaS platform, we enable businesses. And when I say businesses of professional services, it could be a restaurant or a retail business. We enable them to have a voice presence. So having a voice presence means that they can enable their customers to order for, let's say, a service or a product or their favorite food from a restaurant by using their voice. So it's completely hands-free. They don't really need to log onto a website or open a mobile app. All they need to do is just talk to Alexa or Google Home and place an order through that. So that's what our platform does. We enable them to have their storefront on voice.
I'm kind of curious, when you get into, especially around the restaurant industry, obviously, menus can be quite large and complex. How do you go about addressing that if I'm ordering from a Chinese restaurant and someone that might be on, a voice platform, the complexity of that, is this designed to address more of those orders that people would say are kind of my consistent order, or is it something that is designed to explore?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question because a lot of people that we talk to also have this question in mind. If you had to compare voice to web, voice definitely does not have the real estate that web offers. And it does not have the luxury that people can, scroll through long menus, especially in case of a restaurant. So if I had to talk about the best use cases for voice, especially for restaurants, I think the best use case would be to repeat your last order. Because with food, what really happens is you tend to build a taste for something and you build a liking and you want to repeat that order again and again. For example, I want to repeat my favorite pizza order from Domino's. And that's exactly what Domino's is capitalizing on today. They have a repeat order, capability on Alexa, so people can repeat their last order. So that's one use case because there's a lot of repeat order with food. You like to eat the same thing again and again. The other use case from a transactions perspective that we've identified after working with a couple of customers is that it's not just repeat orders. With food, what also happens is most of the times people actually know what they want to buy.
Right.
And that's why they're going to a particular restaurant. When they're exploring a new restaurant, then of course, when they're looking for a new restaurant, then the use case is very, very different. It's about discovery and engagement there. But when you know which restaurant you want to go to, it's probably because you've sort of made up your mind what you want to eat. So in that case, we or any voice platform offers a capability for people to pick from categories. For example, if somebody says, Alexa, order me a pizza from Domino's. Then the next set of interactions would be that what type of pizza are you looking for? Is it veg or non-veg? Within non-veg, you give them top 3 categories. Is it pepperoni? Is it ham pizza? And so on. And they can pick from the top 3 categories.
Okay. So there is some, I guess, machine learning in essence there because it's not quite AI yet. In regards to how voice is translating what's going on in the world today, because I know with Alexa, I find it to be somewhat rudimentary in terms of what you can get, and it's all somewhat pre-programmed. Once you throw a voice, any kind of curveball, it starts to, Siri does it, Alexa doesn't really matter. So,
Right.
so I see the fact of going the route of, especially in restaurants, because I think you're dead on with that, of the fact that, um, most of your favorite restaurants. I know I'm that way in a couple of restaurants that I go to on an ongoing basis, where I could probably recite the menu, so I don't really need that interface. Definitely is a benefit there. Do you feel like with the evolution of voice, especially in food, because I could see where this might get down the road, where it just might be, hey, Alexa, order a pizza for tonight at 7 p.m. Do you feel like we're ever
That's
going to get away from the brand element? Because that seems a little bit, in terms of possibility, to where it could just be
right.
pizza rather than
Right.
Domino's pizza. Do you see that coming down the
Absolutely.
pipe?
Absolutely. I think so. So what you said, one part of that is already possible today. For example,
Mm-hmm.
instead of saying that I want to order a veg pizza and deciding which pizza, you just say order me a pizza at 7 p.m.
Right.
It's possible. As far as the brand element is concerned, as of today, yes, that's not possible. You need to really enable a brand and then decide that what you want to buy. So first, you need to know which brand you want to buy from. To
Yeah.
answer your question about if things will, ultimately move to a behavior similar to web, where you don't necessarily search for a brand, you search for a category, and the
Right.
brand shows up, and then you pick from that. That's definitely going to happen. But we need to be cognizant of the fact that voice is in its very, very early days.
Yeah.
And similarly to web, on the web, you see many results because there are many options.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, Google's search engines have learned that when somebody asks for a pepperoni pizza, probably Domino's is the best option because that converts the most, right? Similarly, on voice, over time, Amazon's algorithms, or let's say Google Home's algorithms, will learn that for a particular keyword, this is the brand that works the best.
Yeah.
So, I should fulfill this requirement with this brand's skill, and that's really called a can fulfill intent in the technical terms that Amazon already offers on Alexa, but it's not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also because voice is really new and there are not a lot of interactions.
Sure. Is there, and maybe this is already out in terms of voice, a way to connect the e-commerce element of it, so that, whether you're logged into your Amazon account, or maybe it's through Apple and Siri or Google Home, where you've got a credit card attached to that particular account, and being able to translate down to an e-commerce, hook of some sort. If I am a brand, and can I get my brand somewhat stripified, in essence, with one of these voice platforms?
Absolutely. So for example, I'll give you an example because we work with customers, and for them, we've enabled exactly the thing that you just spoke about. Um, if because your Amazon account is attached to your Alexa device, and most likely everybody in this world has made at least one purchase on Amazon, to which they've attached their credit card. So what really happens is that when you go out there on Alexa to make a purchase, let's say for example, if a restaurant wants a presence on Alexa, we give them an integration with Amazon Pay so that their customers don't need another integration. All they
Mm-hmm.
need to do is order, and Alexa just asks them that, do you enable
Right.
Amazon Pay for the payment? So the payment also
Yeah.
happens through voice, and it picks it from your existing Amazon
Yeah.
account. So it's very seamless that way.
How many platforms is Emitrr connected with? You've got Amazon out there, Google, Apple with Siri, and
Right.
obviously Apple Pay. Do you foresee many of these tech companies starting to implement voice architecture?
Absolutely. So, to answer your first question, we are currently connected with Alexa and Google Home, and the reason
Okay.
for that is because the penetration is highest in terms of
Right.
both at the backend. Amazon offers a great software development kit at the backend. So does Google. Uh, so that's the reason why we're just connected with these two right now. In terms of the future and these big brands going after voice, Apple's already started working. Apple's also released their own smart speaker, Bixby is coming up,
Sure.
and if you see, there are a lot of other local players, who are either launching their smart speakers, or a lot of other people bigger companies getting into the voice technology. The reason why not many people would have heard about Bixby or Siri from a commerce perspective is really because developers don't have a lot of options to build a platform on top of these. Alexa
Hmm.
and Google Home
Yeah.
are way ahead. So that's why we're seeing a lot of activity around that space. But yes,
Sure.
definitely, I think all the brands are definitely going to get there. They've realized that voice is probably going to become a big channel where people will do business. So I'm very confident that the bigger brands will also get in there.
Yeah. Well, smart TVs kind of went that route with obviously web connected and interfacing now with apps in themselves. Obviously, I have the set top boxes, companies like Roku and et cetera, online
Right.
and on demand platforms, whether it's Netflix, Disney, you name it, and the many others. At some point, there could be some integration there. I would see, especially from a TV interface, and now even maybe at the automotive level. I saw somewhere that Ford was implementing an Alexa platform inside some of their cars. So, I mean, this could
Right.
become a really major next step in the evolution of technology. I guess my question is the and whether or not we'll see mass adoption of this, much like we've seen mass adoption of the smartphone. Because there was probably a time
Right.
when people said, "Hey, I'm never going to carry a smartphone," but now obviously we know different.
Right.
Kind of curious on mass adoption. What do you think in terms of voice around kind of where the consumer adoption might go?
Right. So again, I mean, if I had to look at some numbers from an adoption perspective, I think 100 million people already have smart speakers at home.
Hmm.
And so that's huge because smart speakers are not not a decade old, or
Sure.
it's a very very new industry, and 100 million people have already taken to smart speakers, started using it. So the adoption from a consumer perspective is definitely growing, and Amazon's making a big push. If you read the recent news, Amazon's going to slash down prices more and more, probably even make it free at some point of time when they realize that the monetization is through commerce and not through the device. So that engagement is definitely really really high. From a business perspective, again, I think businesses have started to realize that voice is becoming big. So if again I had to talk of numbers on Alexa, you have more than 150,000 voice apps already. So you have
Hmm.
150,000 ways to engage with Alexa, either through a podcast or through listening to your music. Some restaurants have already taken to it, so ordering food through some particular restaurants, ordering coffee. There's Starbucks, Domino's, Dunkin' Donuts. So people have already started getting there, but from a business perspective, it's not there yet. So about from these 150,000 voice apps on Alexa,
Hmm.
uh, probably I would say not even 1% would be business related. Most of them are content consumption or content
Right.
engagement,
Yeah.
skills. But that's really how I've seen the web and the mobile industry also pick up, because people start to engage, it becomes a habit, and then people realize that there is audience. So why not do
Hmm.
business there? So I really think that from it's already getting there really really fast, and with time I think it'll probably sooner or later it'll be much larger than we realize.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the interface obviously has been, it's mostly renowned in science fiction more so than anything. Now, obviously, we're seeing that, but again, it goes kind of down to the point of where the technology is going and how the interface connectivity is occurring. From a skills level, I guess that will be the next big leap in realization of something like this. Your thoughts on maybe how let's look at the restaurant space. So other ways that maybe consumers could use this down the road. Obviously, ordering and commerce, probably the biggest. Any
Yeah.
other areas? Because I find, informational aspects very helpful with at least with voice. Do you feel like that could be a play in terms of kind of differentiating a brand out there?
Absolutely. I think the keyword here is differentiating a brand, which you used very, very correctly. So before actually getting into the other ways, I'll give you an example. We were recently talking to a dentist in New York, and he wanted to understand and explore how he can use voice. But the mindset was that, can I get orders through this? Obviously, as a business, the first focus is to generate revenue from a new channel,
Yeah.
but that does not necessarily happen. So we brainstormed, and we thought that if you really want people to buy from you through this channel, you first need to get people on this channel and engage them, and then push them to buy. So we came up with an idea that we will probably set up a timer for all your customers on Alexa to remind them that, hey, your next dental appointment is on this date,
Hmm.
and we'll remind them on that date.
That's
So if the
interesting. Yeah.
reminder right, and if the reminder is going on that device, they'll probably even make the appointment through the device.
Right.
So that's where you will start to realize that, okay, I'm getting the revenue. So it's very, very important to step out of that engineering mindset, and think from a marketing perspective, engagement perspective. So now to really answer your question, I think for restaurants, there are a lot of other ways people can really engage. For example, I mean, if there's a restaurant that I really, really love the pasta from, and maybe I don't want to order today, or maybe I don't want to step out of the house today and go to that restaurant, but I want to know how that is done. And while I'm cooking in the kitchen, I just want the recipe of that food, right? So maybe I just get the recipe from the restaurant's Alexa skill. So that's one way
Okay.
of sharing content. And
Yeah.
of course, on the back end, there are a lot of other operational aspects that can be automated through voice. We are working with a couple of hotels where they want to operationalize, checklists through voice. So an
Yeah.
operation person goes to Alexa and says, point A done, point B done, point C done.
Well, I mean, I could see, service points being delivered, especially in a hotel, because I think the hotel aspect is potential, especially if we start to see mobile interface, or even though I'm not sure about in room. I have seen some Alexas in hotels where, though I am a Amazon user, I wasn't comfortable with actually logging in. It's kind of like logging in on
Right,
your Netflix account sometimes in a hotel.
right.
I mean, it feels like it kind of crosses that boundary of privacy a little bit. But if it was on my mobile device, then that changes things a bit, which I think could eventually be a bigger part of that if the mobile is somewhat self-aware of where I am. Like if it knows that I'm at a certain location, like a Pixel phone, knows I'm staying in a restaurant in Manhattan or staying in a hotel in Manhattan, and I'm getting ready to leave, and I just simply Alexa check out, kind of thing, of
Absolutely.
hotel whatever. That could be very beneficial, from a hospitality aspect. Same thing with reservations, with restaurants, and
Right.
even
With
more complex in some cases. I definitely see it being. There's a big advocate that I've talked to about this before, that really goes into the theory that voice could become somewhat the next generation of what mobile was for this past decade. Do you feel that's a reality in our lifetime? Do you think that's something we're going to see in the next 30 years?
I think I'm definitely positive about it, that it will happen. It might become as big as mobile, and because the use cases, since it's hands free, the use cases are that you can think of a variety of use cases, and you're not limited.
Hmm.
But the other thing that we really need to be aware of is that not all the business will move from mobile or web to voice. It's
Sure.
just going to be one of the channels, and it is definitely going to be a very interesting and big channel. So I definitely think it's going to be a big enough wave, as big as mobile, because you can already make your calls, you can book your cabs,
Right.
and so it is replicating that use case. But not all the business can move from there, because one obvious thing is there's no real estate, and VUI, which is voice user interface, is not as not it cannot be compared to GUI. So
Hmm.
it's that's
Yeah.
the only reason why I feel that it'll not take away all the business.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's just there's going to be some very intriguing and creative ways to utilize it. the key there is going to be, the adoption percentage is kind of how the growth ends up going. I'm kind of curious, when you look at the, kind of the privacy element of voice. Let's go down that track for a moment. So this is something I hear from, all my friends in my circles, where almost everybody I know has an Amazon Alexa in their kitchen. And, I'm kind of curious, to some point, I mean, these devices are somewhat always listening. And the question, I guess, comes at some point is the ability to opt in or out of this type of technology. Do you think we'll see a point in time where consumers or the mass population looks at these as invasive devices and says, wait a minute, this is kind of coming past that privacy level that I'm comfortable with?
So to answer your question, I think yes, definitely there are a lot of concerns about the privacy. I've heard a lot of people, talk about this and not be sure whether they should have such a device. But I think if again I compare it to web or mobile, just the way you have privacy laws on websites, for web interactions, you have cookies. You need to inform users that this website has cookies and it tracks you. And similarly on mobile,
Yeah.
I think that on voice also something of this sort is going to come up, and Amazon and Google are definitely working on this, I'm sure. Otherwise, I feel it'll become very, very difficult for Amazon over time to build their go-to-market for this.
Yeah.
So, although I cannot imagine how, but I'm very confident that they're working on this aspect as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a needed thing, especially since these voice devices are somewhat ambient. They're in larger spots. The reason I say this, I had I won't call it an incident, but I had a situation at my home where we were having a party, and one of my guests asked that we unplug the Alexa.
Wow.
And I was kind of taken back by that. I was like, wow, I didn't think about that. That if someone's coming into my house, they might feel, oh, wait a minute, everything I say is being recorded or potentially listened to. So it kind of startled me in the sense, okay, there are people out there that are concerned with this. So, now I'm almost to the point where I'm like, hey, if we have a dinner party or something, I'm just say, hey, we've unplugged the Alexas, and
Right.
everybody can speak freely, which is
That's
an interesting scenario.
that. It's funny that people really think that way, and of course they will, given given the history of things that we've seen on the website. There's a funny incident that even I came across. So initially we were going after businesses, and B2B businesses, talking to them about enabling meetings. They could ask Alexa during a meeting, hey, what's the website traffic today? How much revenue did we clock in the last month?
Yeah.
And the only feedback that we got from all these businesses was that we don't want to share our data. We don't want to integrate with Alexa for
Interesting.
this.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, you are giving it to kind of, Mother Amazon. So I
Right.
guess it's how many points of control are there, and then I could see Alexa's in a business where somebody are very interested in privacy, that you could run into employees or people within the facility that might not like that.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I think there are going to be some challenges, and I know Amazon is going to have to address them. Obviously, if someone like Facebook or some of these other big companies out there, I know Facebook attempted this with I can't remember the device they were going after, but didn't do well. But there are companies, I think, that could start to cross over, whether you look at Apple in what they've kind of positioned themselves as is the privacy. I just saw another commercial this weekend
Right.
that Apple is really camping on this whole privacy thing.
Right.
So your business is your business. It's very secure. And I think the company that wins on that, from a consumer adoption, because obviously for it to work in commerce, there's going to have to be mass adoption out there, just like mobile,
Right.
which is interesting because mobile, we've kind of, to a certain extent, accepted the privacy, disclosures of geolocation, and a lot of what we do on our phones are somewhat interlinked from app to app and so on. So it's definitely possible, that's for sure.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right to say that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the technology. I want to learn a little bit about what Emitrr does. How do you? So, what's the engagement process? You go to a company, you you work with them. If it's something like on what you're doing with us here at the Barron Report, you know, you make an RSS feed that drops into Amazon, so someone can listen to the show on
Right.
Amazon Alexa. But once it goes beyond that, because that's, I'm assuming, is a fairly simple RSS, you know, reduction that shoots it into Amazon to create a skill. What
Right.
is the engagement process if a restaurant says, I want to be able to do this for ordering? How difficult is that?
Right. I think from an implementation perspective, if somebody was not to use a platform, and that's why we thought of building a platform, they could run into at least 8 to 10 months or even a year's effort in building this. And I'll talk a little bit
Mm-hmm.
about why that would take so much time. From a technology perspective about our platform, for us it's very simple. For example, if you want to work with Fresh and Co in New York, which is a fresh food and a salad chain, for us,
Yep, I know them.
right.
Yep.
It's very straightforward, right? That we integrate with their POS. Let's say, for example, we currently integrate with Delivery.com. So, for example, if they use Delivery.com or if there's any other POS, we integrate with that. The data gets fetched from that automatically, so we know their last orders for each customer, and we know what categories they have, how the food is differentiated for different categories, and we push this data onto Alexa so that people can really enable that skill on Alexa and order for the food. So the Alexa tells them that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, either you can repeat your last order or you can start a fresh order, and within fresh order then it takes them through the series of interactions. So that's in simple terms, that's what really happens. We integrated with Amazon Pay, so we just need people to have an Amazon Pay account or Stripe account, and they add their Stripe or Amazon Pay API details, which ultimately adds to the last step of the skill where people can make the payment and authorize the payment. So that's what really happens, and then ultimately we also offer a platform if somebody does not want to use the POS, where they can feed in data about what all products they want to offer on voice, and they can track their reports there. That, for example, on voice, I through voice I got 30 orders this month, which were worth, let's say,
Yeah.
$10,000. So that's really our platforms. In very very simple terms, that people can enable ordering. We are adding a layer of engagement on top where people can push content, recipes, games, loyalty points, discounts, coupons. So that's on top of it. Uh, when I said that it would take anybody between 8 to 10 months or even a year just to build this and then testing and then marketing, the reason for that is because somebody really needs to understand Alexa's APIs, go through the documentation, understand what are the best voice user interface practices, then start building all the integrations with Amazon Pay if they want to process payments. If not, then they have
Right.
to collect cash and things like these, right? And also the most interesting part to note is that similar to iOS, how their requirements are very very strong and very strict in terms of accepting apps. Same is the case with Alexa. So they've realized that publishing a podcast has become easier because it's content, but any skill that has transaction or ordering or delivery
Right.
status, it's very hard to get it published. Amazon's very very strict about the quality, about the interactions. They want to make sure that their end users have a great experience, and that's where we come in because we are an Amazon Pay partner. So whatever we've built
Mm-hmm.
is certified. For us, it takes a week, and we can easily publish. Or at max, it'll take us a month. And using our platform, it'll automatically get published that fast because we have everything built. Everything is certified from Amazon's side.
Yeah. Interesting. So you mentioned a lot of integration there, integration to point of sale,
Right.
integration to the on-demand services. Is this something that you've been doing at Emitrr in terms of building those relationships? I mean, there must be 75 to 100 point of sale systems out there
Right.
that are significant enough. How are you going about with those relationships, you know, from,
Right.
the Posi touches all the way down to Elo and so on?
Right. So currently we just have integration with delivery.com, and if somebody is using a custom POS that we've not really heard of or we don't integrate with, then we integrate with them on a custom service basis. But we are in
Okay.
active talks with identifying more POS platforms who we can integrate with. One realization that we have is probably not a lot of POS platforms have open APIs. Because they
Yeah.
don't have open APIs, it's not really possible for us to integrate proactively. So we really need to reach out to them and tell them that, hey, we have 10 customers who use your POS, so we need access to your APIs so that we can use
Yeah.
it and integrate. So that's been the challenging part, but I wouldn't really call it a challenge. I think that's been the way we've decided that we'll go in the restaurant industry.
Yeah. That will be the challenging part, for sure, because it's we've watched it, and I've worked and talked with a lot of technology companies that have entered the space in the past decade or so, and that has been one of the biggest issues is the POS integration.
Right.
Because you're right, there is not an open API, even from the most latest
Right.
POS technology that's been kind of brought onto the market. If you look at companies like Toast or Revel or some of these iPad-based type platforms, they are somewhat still closed. So it'll be interesting to see how you guys move forward there. Well, excellent. This has been great, Anmol, on understanding a little bit more about voice technology. I'm very intrigued on this because I think this is a product or a service that could go somewhere at some point for the food and hospitality industry. I'm very intrigued as to see how far and how fast this is really going to take adoption. So we're going to be definitely checking back in with you from time to time to kind of get your thoughts on how the market is going.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me on the show, Paul. It's been a great set of questions, and apart from just answering them, I think I have a lot to take back, and a lot of learnings for me as well. So yes, I'm
Yeah.
definitely positive that hopefully voice will change the way people do business, in the restaurant industry.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, as you guys know, we here on the Barron Report, we love to get your input. We also love your feedback. And the way to give us feedback is if you're listening over on iTunes or maybe on Spotify, give us a rating. And then also, if you have a comment, leave it. We love to kind of integrate and look at that feedback. If you like to do it on social media, just hit me up at Paul Barron on Twitter. You can also shoot us an email if you have a guest or idea for the show. Just shoot an email over to producer@foodabletv.com. And last but not least, if you are looking for more podcasts like this one, just go into iTunes, search Foodable Network, and that will give you an array of all of these great podcasts. And if you are now a voice user on Alexa, you can just ask about that on the Barron Report, and hopefully it's going to play right there on your Alexa device. Thanks again for listening in. We'll catch you next time right here on the Barron Report.